So this video is going to cover the respiratory system and the parts of the respiratory system. As we go through, you should fill in your notes and make sure to label your diagram. We're going to basically be working from the outside of the body to the inside where gas exchange occurs. And so we're going to start off by defining the function. So the main function of the respiratory system is to bring oxygen from the environment into our cells or into our bodies and take carbon dioxide and from our body and get rid of it. Starting on the outside, we're going to begin with the nose, and a lot of people breathe through their mouth. So that's where the opening to the environment is. The pharynx is an interesting region of our throat. It's basically the back of your throat, the navel cavity, and your mouth. Pharynx basically can have both food and air. It's a sort of a double purpose area. It's before your esophagus splits from your trachea, so before they're separated. So you can think of it as the back of your throat. One way to remember that, pH sounds like a letter F. F for food, because food can be there, but it's part of the respiratory system. The larynx then is the beginning of where it's going to be air only, and it's protected by a flap that we'll be talking about in the digestive system called the epiglottis. Now you guys saw the glottis on a frog, which would close over the airway. The epiglottis is almost the same thing in humans. It's more of like a trap door that will flip down and block food from entering the larynx. I'm also going to post a video of somebody's larynx on Google Classroom, because the larynx houses the voice box, which are these two flaps of tissue that vibrate back and forth to create sound, what you guys call your vocal cords. Traveling inward still from the larynx, so below where you can feel your voice, the sounds of your voice are created, we're going to call that just the trachea. And so the trachea is now definitely air only, hopefully, and it's the connection really between the mouth or the nose and the lungs. So far, air has either gone in or out through those structures, but no gas exchange occurs. And now we're going to get down towards where carbon dioxide and oxygen are actually going to be traded back and forth here in a second. So we started, and basically the trachea comes down and it's a single tube, and now there's going to be a branch or a split in that tube. And that first split are the bronchi, or singular bronchus. And this is the first split in the passageway between the outside and the lung. So now the air is going to be divided, and then it's going to be further divided into the bronchioles, which are a series of smaller tubes that radiate out from the bronchi. The bronchioles really, it's dividing that air up. So we've got to, in order to efficiently extract or exchange things between our bodies and the atmosphere, we need a lot of surface area. And so these structures are important because they increase surface area, which is really beneficial to the structures within our lungs, which allow that air to spread out for more exchange. The alveoli then are where actual gas exchange occurs. So this is the pieces that are doing the actual work of trading gases back and forth. I say work, it's a passive process. It's happening by diffusion. So remember, diffusion is the movement of things from high concentration to low concentration. So we don't need to expend any energy or burn any sugar or ATP for carbon dioxide and oxygen to move back and forth across our alveoli. But that's where it's happening. Oxygen's going from the alveoli into the blood, and carbon dioxide is going from the blood into the alveoli. One gas is basically going in, oxygen, that's something we need, and one gas is leaving, carbon dioxide, that's our waste product. So this diagram does a much better job than my drawing of showing these different passageways and branching. So air should be coming through the nose, down through the back of the nasal cavity. We don't have a lot of time to think or talk about it, but there's a lot of filtering that happens up here of particulates. And also this is where your sense of smell, there's some tissue in here that's got a lot of these receptors that can bind to odorants, molecules in the air. So our first part really that we discussed was the pharynx right here. Like I said, the back of your throat can be food, can be air. Then we've got what we're going to talk about as part of the digestive system, that epiglottis, which is a little flap that protects the airway. So now air is going to go down and jump over to the front side of what you think of as your neck, into your larynx. Your vocal cords are going to be right there, and then down your trachea, and then it splits into the bronchi, and then can split again into the bronchioles. And then the alveoli are going to be out at the ends of the bronchioles. And this is a close-up look at an alveolus. So if we zoom in more on an alveolus, this structure right here would be a bronchiole. Okay, and now we're sort of looking at a cross-section of an alveolus here. Basically what's happening is our air is coming in, atmospheric air, and it's relatively high in oxygen and low in carbon dioxide. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw oxygen basically as red lines, carbon dioxide as blue lines, and that should tie in with what you're thinking of as oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. And so what happens is oxygen will move from its high concentration, it's high on the inside of the alveolus with the atmospheric air. It's low in the blood of the capillaries that surround and coat the surfaces of these alveoli. And so oxygen will diffuse across the cell membranes from the alveoli into the blood. And then basically the oxygen will flow out the capillaries to the rest of the body in the blood. It has to go back to the heart and then gets pumped out to the rest of the body. Carbon dioxide is high in the blood, so a lot of CO2 comes in to these alveoli. It's relatively low in the atmospheric air, and so it diffuses from the blood out into the atmospheric air in the alveoli, and then carbon dioxide is going to get pushed out from the lungs with exhalation. So basically, oxygen is getting dumped into the blood while carbon dioxide is getting dumped into the air. So that's the direction that our body wants those things to go, all happening by diffusion, passive transport, no energy being expended for the exchange of those gases. You're using energy as muscles to breathe in and out. We're going to look at that, but no energy to move those gases back and forth. So that happens in two separate steps. When we force air into the body, that's called inhalation, air moving in. And when we force air out, that's exhalation, X like exit, air is moving out. Both inhalation and exhalation are powered by a special muscle called the diaphragm. You are most aware of your diaphragm when you have hiccups, because that's a spasm or a muscular contraction of the diaphragm outside of our control. And so what happens is the diaphragm basically pulls down or relaxes up to power our breathing. I'm going to show you that a little bit better with a diagram. So if we look at our anatomy, the diaphragm sits right here. It divides your whole body, front to back, side to side, just below your lungs. The frogs didn't have a diaphragm, so you guys did not see this in the frogs. But basically what happens is we can contract and pull our diaphragm down. And that's basically what happens is as we pull that down, the diaphragm goes down, our rib cage will expand out, and this is like pulling back the plunger on a syringe. And so you're trying to increase the volume of your chest cavity, and the only opening is up here at your mouth. So if you increase the volume, it's going to create negative pressure, which will draw air into the lungs, and that's inhalation, that's breathing in, okay? It's basically like pulling back a syringe. Now, for exhalation, what happens is basically you relax. Your muscles stop contracting, the diaphragm relaxes back up, your chest and rib cage compress back in, which creates high pressure, and high pressure is like pushing a syringe back in, will force air out of the lungs, and that's exhalation. And I'm going to post a video just of this, a demonstration of this process into Classroom. So basically, we respire or breathe using inhalation and exhalation in order to maintain homeostasis, remember internal stable conditions, with respect to oxygen level. And so your body has a bunch of ways that it monitors carbon dioxide and oxygen in the blood, and breathing rate is tied to that. If you are using more oxygen and producing more carbon dioxide, then breathing rate goes up. If you're using less oxygen, producing less carbon dioxide, your breathing rate can go down. But it's all powered by the diaphragm. And so the diaphragm, either contracting down or relaxing up, powers this inhalation-exhalation process. When we look at disorders of the respiratory system, we're really going to talk just about a couple. Anytime we damage the lungs, that's a problem because that limits our ability to trade gases. Okay, we have trouble bringing oxygen in, we have trouble getting carbon dioxide out. One of the main ways to damage your lungs is to breathe in chemicals, okay? Any kind of pollutant, things like cigarette smoke, asbestos, which was a building material that causes a special type of cancer called mesothelioma, any type of fumes, this could be from painting or cleaning or welding, are all of concern. One specific disease that's associated with exposure to lots of different chemicals is called emphysema. And emphysema occurs when we have lung tissue damage that results in problems breathing. Emphysema is really strongly associated with smoking. And basically what's happening with emphysema is there's an excess of buildup of tar and tar-like chemicals that cause damage. Basically what happens is it reduces the flexibility of the alveoli. And so the alveoli can't kind of expand and contract, so the diaphragm will move down, but the lungs have problem increasing in volume, and so gas exchange is difficult. Just to try to give you a picture of what that would look like, from the outside, we're looking at here a smoker lung versus a healthy lung. You're just seeing a lot of buildup of tar and other chemicals. And where that's at, so if this is an alveoli connected to a bronchiole, that tar is here. It's inside, coating the inner surface of the alveoli, because when you breathe in all those toxins, they come in, they coat your alveoli, they block the cells from being able to exchange gases, and the whole structure loses flexibility. Another more common disorder, I shouldn't say more common. Another disorder that you guys are more likely to have experience with is asthma. Asthma is a disorder of the respiratory system that's caused by a swelling of especially the bronchioles and bronchi. And this is a lot of times considered to be an allergic type reaction, but it can be set off by a variety of things, including stress, environmental factors, and genetics. And all those things can lead to causing asthma. Asthma is known to occur at higher rates in areas with more pollution and in children who grow up in households that have smoking. Basically, what an asthma attack is that the tissue of the bronchioles, which normally is very much open to allow for air to pass through, will swell up and really restrict the movement of air. And people, when they have an asthma attack, often feel like they can't breathe. And basically what's happening is their airways have become so restricted that they're having trouble moving oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. There also can be some mucus And, you know, in a really bad case, you can have something called anaphylaxis. Hope I'm spelling this right. Where your airways completely swell shut. That might happen with like a bee sting, or maybe you ate something that you're very allergic to, and people can die from that. And so asthma is usually treated with a steroid. And so you'll breathe in a steroid, or you might take steroid pills. And steroids generally, in this situation, reduce swelling. And so, like taking an inhaler, the goal is to reduce the swelling of this tissue layer here in the bronchioles and relax that airway, open it up for breathing. So this is just a review slide that you should take a look at, and there's a couple of videos posted on the website to help you with these concepts.